They entered the hulk through a broken docking moor, its edges warped and jagged like the teeth of a dying god. The boarding team moved single file, boots clanking against corroded decking plates, slick with condensation and age. Captain Varnus Kree led them grim-jawed, silent, armor weathered by 5 campaigns and a dozen brushfires across the segmentum solar. His eyes were the color of oxidized steel, and they did not blink when the first vox hissed with static. The hulk was unnamed, unsanctioned. No known ship matched its silhouette, and yet its bones bore the mark of imperial design fragments of bulkhead prayer scripts, torn nubs, sacred runes half melted into slag. This wasn't an orc construct. It wasn't tyrannid, and it wasn't entirely dead. Somewhere in its depths, a pulse of emergency power still hummed, just beneath the register of sound like the vibration of a prayer. Half-Dash said, the boarding torch had cut through layers of hull thicker than any vessel Kree had seen since the archenemy. Siege at Valix Prime, that siege had cost him a leg and a dozen men. This was different. The ship didn't feel ancient. It felt waiting. The first corridor was narrow, walled with pipes and wires strung like intestines torn from a metal beast. Every step echoed. Every light flickered before failing. Even the lumens they carried didn't pierce far ahead. Sergeant Learn muttered a half-litany into his rebreather, fingers white against the grip of his lasgun. One of the newer troopers, Genic maybe. Barely 20 gagged as they passed a bloated servitor embedded in a wall. Its flesh long rotted, but its mechadendrites twitching faintly. Still wired to something below .kree, gave no order to stop. He didn't need to. The silence held them tighter than any chain. Somewhere deep within, metal screamed. Not movement, not groaning, a scream. Like tortured steel or the death throes of a machine spirit denied the Emperor's light. It came from the vent, shafts above them, reverberating like laughter filtered through static. Keep moving, Kree ordered, his voice like dry gravel over vox. No prayers, no talking. Let the ship forget we're here. But the ship did not forget. An hour passed, or maybe 2. Chronosenses began to distort in the rust-glow gloom. The deeper they moved, the more the air thickened. It tasted of copper and incense, ozone and old blood. They passed shattered statuary. Once grand and ecclesiarchal, now blackened and scrawled with twisting runes that bled when touched. The Imperial Aquila above a ruined command altar had been gouged in half, and something had left bite marks in the stone. Teeth too large to be human, too regular to be beast. Kree's auspex flickered, then died. He didn't ask for replacements. He knew better. There were places where machines lied. Private Solvi broke first. She wasn't weak, she'd survived. An Uglin-festered manufactorum on Barthas 4. But when they passed through a chamber of hanging Vox units, each one still faintly whispering old distress signals in 100 broken dialects, she simply dropped her weapon and began to scream. She clawed at her helmet, trying to tear it off, gasping. It's saying my name, it knows my name. They had to sedate her with a Kree made no mention of it in the log. There would be no return trip for records, not unless the God Emperor himself willed it. The corridors turned tighter, the walls closing in with the pressure of burial. Kree paused at a junction where the air temperature dropped suddenly cold enough to fog lenses. Ahead, a door hung open on sparking hinges. Inside, something pulsed faintly red, like a heartbeat under metal skin. Kree stepped in without hesitation. It was a chapel, or had once been. Now the pews were twisted into thrones, each holding a skeleton dressed in blood-soaked robes. On the altar lay a book, not parchment, but flayed skin stitched together, written in blood and ink. The words moved. They formed his name. Cree turned and left, said nothing, and none who saw the room dared speak of it again. Behind them, in the darkness, something clicked. Something stirred. Down the next passage, the air grew warmer. Not the warmth of breath or fire, but of a body. A living thing. The kind of heat that sticks to the skin and sinks under armor. No wind, no vents. Just pressure, growing with every meter. Cree could feel it under his breastplate, in the back of his throat, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. The Hulk was responding to them. Reacting, Private Jennings stumbled as the floor dipped beneath him, not a slope, but a soft give in the metal. The deck had warped, bent from inside. The metal felt ... swollen. The kind of bulge you see in something rotting from heat. No sign of combustion, just the pressure of decay. Above them, a vent cover hung askew. Something black and wet had dripped onto the ground beneath it. Not oil, not promethium residue. Something thicker, more organic. It hissed faintly when light struck it. Lern nudged it with the butt of his lasgun. It moved. They left it. Further down, the corridor opened into a chamber ringed with hanging servo skulls, none operational. They dangled by cables like desecrated cherubs, bone polished to a yellow sheen, their lenses cracked, tongues of parchment prayer script fluttering like dead flags. The walls here were partially organic tubing and sinew-like wiring melded with rusted plasteel. The ceiling was high, cathedral-like, blackened from ancient fire. At its apex, a hollowed-out sensor cluster pointed downward like an unblinking eye. Someone had painted around it in faded crimson. A sunburst, or perhaps an explosion. Cree didn't look long enough to be sure. A chill moved over them, like an unseen thing passing close. Jennings made the sign of the Aquila, hands shaking. His voice cracked in whisper. "Sir, I think this place. I think it used to be Imperial." "It did," Cree said. "It isn't anymore." There was a sound, then wet, deliberate. Not a footstep, but a scrape. Something dragging. Cree raised his fist. The squad froze. Las guns ready. Light steady. No one breathed. From a passage to their left, a figure crawled into view. Not walking, not limping, crawling. It was a man, or had been. His armor bore the red and black of the Adeptus Mechanicus, but his limbs were wrung, one arm, swollen and stretched. The other fused with rusted augmetics, twitching with broken rhythm. His mouth opened and closed as if speaking, but no words came. A metal coil emerged from his throat like a tongue, twitching. Then he stopped moving. Right there in the threshold, his body slumped. A final spasm. Dead Lern stepped forward to inspect, but Cree grabbed his shoulder hard enough to bruise. "He was sent ahead," Cree said quietly. "He's not alone." From the shadows behind the corpse came a low gurgling noise, like wet meat shifting against metal. Cree raised his lasgun and whispered into the vox, "Fall back." Quietly, but the thing behind the corpse moved faster than orders. It tore from the dark like a shadow given muscle, crashing into the dead tech priest with a crunch. It was humanoid in shape, but not in motion. Its limbs, too long, joints bending wrong. Talons slick with blood and something that hissed on the deck plating. They opened fire. The corridor lit in staccato bursts of lost bolts. the air filling with smoke and ozone. Screams tangled with gunfire. One trooper went down, throat torn open before he had time to pray. The thing screamed not in pain, but in fury and retreated into the dark faster than they could track. Then, silence. The corpse was gone. So was the attacker. The walls dripped with black liquid. The sensor eye above blinked red once. Kree lowered his weapon, checked his team. Jenik was still breathing, barely. Lern was clutching his side, where blood oozed from a gash between armor plates. Solvi had fired until her charge pack ran dry. She stood now, clicking the trigger again and again with no result. Eyes wide, lips moving in a prayer she'd forgotten the words to. Kree didn't speak. He just nodded forward. They moved. This was not a ship. Not anymore. It was a crypt built on madness. And they were intruders at a funeral for a god that never lived. The deeper they went, the more the walls seemed to close in, not physically, but spiritually. The Aquillas were gone now. The prayers scratched away. Only whispers remained. Whispers in a language no one remembered learning. Kree began to hear them in his sleep cycles short. Fragmented minutes stolen in secure corners behind makeshift barricades. Dreams full of symbols. Voices like his own, but backwards. The sound of breathing, not his. He stopped trying to sleep after the third time he woke up with blood on his hands and no memory of why. But the real horror had not yet begun. It waited. Behind a door sealed in burned ceramite and cold iron, miles below the surface of this corpse. And it knew they were coming. It was Sergeant Lern who found the sealed chamber, though found might be the wrong word. It called to him. Not with sound, but pressure. A pull in the gut. A weight behind the eyes. Like the gravity of guilt. He had strayed only a dozen meters from their makeshift hold point when he noticed the corridor, sloping downward at a precise angle. Too clean. Too perfect. As if the ship wanted it noticed. The team followed in silence, not questioning his instinct. There was no reason to trust it, but less reason not to. Logic had become a luxury in the Hulk. Everything here moved by ritual now. The door stood at the end of that sloped corridor like a judge's gavel frozen mid-stride. It was different from the others. No rust, no vines of coiled wire, no bone-thick filth coating its hinges. It was black ceramite, unmarked but for a single glyph scorched into the center. Kree recognized it immediately. So did Lern, so did Solvi, though she wouldn't speak of it. The mark of the Inquisition, not etched, not welded, burned. They stood in silence, lit only by flickering torch beam, smoke coiling round their legs like fog in a plague dream. The ship made no sound, no groan, not even a whisper. It was as if the Hulk itself was holding its breath. Solvi's voice cracked through the stillness, hoarse and hollow. This shouldn't be here. This isn't just warp taint. This is sealed. This was meant to be buried. Then why is the door open? Lern asked. And it was, not fully, but just enough. A seam of darkness ran down its edge, like a wound in the belly of the beast. A faint warmth pulsed from within, not fire, but something slower, deeper, like the breathing of something asleep. Or pretending to be. Kree approached. His hand hovered over the handle, gauntlet trembling despite decades of battle-hardened stillness. He didn't want to touch it, but command is a weight, and someone had to carry it. He pulled the door, let go with a hiss of stale air and something else. A smell, ancient, oily, sweet. like burnt parchment soaked in blood. It hit them all at once, made Genic retch into his rebreather. Lern wiped at his visor, muttering oaths under breath. Solvi backed up 3 steps and whispered the Emperor's name as though saying it too. Loud might wake something that listened. Inside the room pulsed in red and black. Lines of scripture were etched into the walls, not carved, but grown. Veins of words bulging through steel, wrapping around conduits, splitting servitor husks still wired into cogitator banks. The words shifted when viewed directly, like they knew at the center was a sarcophagus. Tall, black. Mechanical veins linked it to the floor. The walls, the ceiling, as if it were not resting in the room, but part of it. Grown from it. Fed by it. And the lid was cracked open, just a few inches. Enough to see that something inside was wrapped in barbed wire and gold leaf parchment. A face, perhaps, or something shaped like one, pale and perfect. Not rotting, not decayed, preserved. Kree didn't step closer. He didn't need to. He felt it. This was no Xenos, no demon, no Mechanicus construct. This was Imperial. It had always been Imperial. A prisoner, maybe. A saint, a weapon. The lines blurred here, in the dark, beneath 1,000 layers of secrecy and betrayal. Whatever it was, someone had buried it, locked it, forgotten it, and the ship had remembered. Kree turned to speak, to order a fallback, to summon fire or silence. He didn't know which. But he didn't get the chance, because the Vox in Lern's belt chirped, a signal, not internal, external, from orbit, and it wasn't their ship. Kree grabbed the unit, his voice ice. Identify. The reply was delayed, fragmented, but audible. Requesting confirmation. Status of artifact breach. Observe and contain. Repeat, contain. The line went dead. No signature. No repeat. No trace of who sent it. Laren stared at Kree, sir. We're not alone. Kree looked at the sarcophagus. No, we never were. And somewhere far above, deep in the Hulk's broken superstructure, a relay blinked to life. A single green light, steady and quiet. Something had heard them, and something was coming. There was no throne in the ship, but something sat beneath it. They descended through a wound in the Hulk's spine where collapsed plating gave way to a vertical shaft once used for maglift cargo. Now it was just a scar, jagged and exposed. They climbed down, hand over hand, lit only by the flickering torchlights embedded in their shoulder mounts. The further they dropped, the louder the air became, not noise exactly, but pressure. A hum behind the ears, a weight in the blood. It made their molars ache. It made their prayers feel unwelcome. The shaft ended in a cavernous hold, too large for any standard deck plan. Kree marked it with a private notation on his slate, non-compliant geometry. It didn't make sense. The distance they had traveled did not account for the space they now saw. Either the ship had grown inward, or something inside had folded the laws of construction to its will. They walked through shattered scaffolds and broken machine arms hanging like skeletal limbs from above. Rusted banners still clung to the upper reaches of the walls, Mechanicus read, but wrong. The cog symbol had been altered, its center replaced by a bleeding eye, and around it circled binary notations that repeated endlessly, faster than the eye could follow. One tech adept began to record them, whispering the strings aloud. He lasted 30 seconds before he dropped his voxlate and collapsed. Eyes rolling back, foam spilling from his mouth. Kree ordered no one else to read them. Not even him, At the far end of the hold was a doorway carved from what looked like stone, but hummed like circuitry. No hinges, no visible power source. But as they approached, it simply peeled open like a wound splitting under pressure. No one touched it. Beyond, they found what could only be described as a chapel, but it had never been meant for prayer. Instead of pews, rows of data slates were embedded in the floor edge, one showing static, sometimes flickering with fragments of faces, maps, screaming mouths. The walls were papered in sheets of stretched skin, etched with metallic ink holy liturgies, broken into machine code, interspersed with binary and phrases in low Gothic that repeated like sermons. He is speaking. He is listening. He will not stop. The source of the phrase became clear at the altar. It wasn't an altar. It was a dais, and bound to it was a thing once human. It had no eyes, only sockets filled with wires. Its mouth had been torn open and kept that way with augmetic braces, like a vox speaker split in flesh. Tubes ran from its chest into the floor, and its skin had been peeled in symmetrical patterns, like mechanicus schemata laid bare on living parchment. Its heart still beat. Slowly, as they approached, the thing its mouth opened wider, stretching past what the jaw should allow, and it spoke, not in words, in screams. But the screams were layered. Each member of the squad heard something different. Solvi heard her mother's voice, long dead, begging to be burned. Jenik heard himself reciting battle prayers as a child, voice overlapping with a whisper of "You already died here." Lern collapsed to his knees, clutching his ears, saying nothing but "no more. No more, no more." Kree heard nothing at first, only silence. Then one word, spoken in perfect, broken cadence. "Captain." He froze. That voice had no memory of its own, but it knew his name, his rank. It knew how to use familiarity like a blade. He stepped back, the thing on the dais shrieked an electronic wail like a Vox transmission dragged across rusted teeth. Blood burst from the walls in high-pressure sprays, streaking the parchment like fresh ink. Every data slate sparked, flared, and shut off. The static went black dot, and from the far end of the chamber, a new sound rose, metal scraping, a door unlatching. But they had passed no other doors on the way in. Something else had entered, or had always been there. Kea gave the only order that made sense. Back, move, now. They ran not in panic, but with the certainty that nothing in that room was asleep anymore. As they ascended, climbing back through the ship's gullet toward their fallback point, the Vox flared again. A single message, not from orbit, from inside the ship. Let them come further. Jenik tried to trace the signal. He failed, because it wasn't a signal, it was memory, and memory had teeth. They didn't speak as they climbed. Words had lost shape. Names meant nothing. Even the sound of boots on steel seemed like a betrayal, too loud, too mortal. The ship didn't want noise. It wanted fear, and in that silence, it fed by the time they reached their fallback point. The torches had begun to dim, not from failing power, but from something in the air. A dampening, like the shadows had grown teeth, chewing at the edges of the lumen. One by one, the lights flickered out. Lern swapped power cells. Nothing. Jenik tried a backup torch. Dead. The last torch to remain lit was Kree's. He held it low and tight, casting the light down hallways that no longer looked like they had when they passed through them the first time. Angles had shifted. Symbols had appeared. One corridor now ended in a mirror of twisted glass that reflected them all as robed figures, mouths open in voiceless chants. Solvi tore her eyes away first. Her hand trembled near the trigger of her rifle, not out of fear, but restraint. Kree stepped forward and struck the mirror with his gloved fist. It cracked. Not shattered, just cracked. And behind that glass, something moved. Slowly, as if woken. "We're not turning around again," he said flatly. "Forward, before the walls learn our names." No one questioned the order. They passed through another atrium. This one was different. Bigger, rounder. A dome overhead had been cracked open, exposing raw void stars visible, but wrong. Constellations out of order. Movement where there should be none. A black sun pulsed in the distance, flickering like a heartbeat. Kree didn't look long. Neither did anyone else. Instead, they focused on the statues, 10 of them. Each one robed, faceless, standing against the walls with hands raised in benediction or warning. No one could be sure. They weren't made of stone. Not entirely. Their surfaces were textured, not carved. As they drew closer, Solvi's breath hitched. "These are armor pieces," she whispered. "Mark III, some Mark V, these are." Her voice faded. Laren nodded grimly. Legionera, the statues were built from shattered remnants of Astartes plate. Bolter magazines embedded in their chests like reliquaries. Chains carved from spine bone wrapped around their arms. One statue's foot crushed a helmet still leaking black ICHOR. These were not tributes. They were warnings. In the center of the chamber stood a dais, atop which rested a cracked throne of steel and sinew. A servitor was wired to its base, no face, no legs, just a torso and arms splayed wide, impaled by data spikes and vox needles. The voice came from its chest, not its mouth. A looping chant, broken, distorted. He sits, he waits, he bleeds. He speaks, he sits, he waits. The chant stopped mid-syllable the moment Kree stepped forward. A clicking noise echoed from the throne. Then came the voice, low, distorted, not from vox or speaker, from inside the minds of the squad. "Why did you follow the light when you knew it was a scream?" Jennick dropped to one knee. Blood streamed from his nose. His eyes glazed. Laren fired. The bolt struck the servitor's torso. The chant resumed immediately, now faster, in reverse. EKAPSA, STLB, EH, STOE, HESTIs, ASTIs, A. Kree stepped forward, shoved his hand into the pulsing cabling and tore the vox core free. The room went dead. No sound, no vibration. And then the wall behind the throne opened. A panel of steel slid aside with the softness of breath. No hinges, no sound. Just darkness beyond. Inside that darkness, movement. Not fast, not lunging, just. Aware Lern raised his weapon, then lowered it just as quickly. "Sir," he said slowly, voice dry, "that room isn't on the map. It's not on any plan." Kree stared at the opening. "It's been here longer than the ship." There was no discussion. Not anymore. The rules of the mission had broken somewhere back in the chapel. Now they were chasing whispers. They moved forward. Inside, the room was not a room. It was a memory, a viewing chamber, a relic vault. Maybe a prison. In the center hovered a sphere of glass, or something like its surface, rippling as if submerged in oil. Within the sphere, suspended in black liquid, was a heart, human, beating. Each thump sent pulses through the walls, and around the sphere, etched into the floor, circled dozens of names. Captain Varnus Kree read his own first, then Solvi's, then Lern's. None of them spoke, because behind them, the door was no longer open, and ahead, something was waking. The sphere pulsed against low, deliberate, like it knew they were watching. Within the translucent liquid, the heart didn't float. It hovered, suspended unnaturally in place, without tether or device. Each beat sending out faint vibrations that resonated in the floor like distant thunder, not loud, not aggressive, but present, like a second heartbeat trying to sync with their own. Lern was the first to move, stepping around the etched circle with his weapon low, eyes scanning for threat. Kree followed, slower, careful not to step on any of the names inscribed. He didn't know why. It simply felt like something that should not be done. Even in the heart of madness, some instincts held. As he passed, he saw more names: Inquisitor, Velek, Tech Priests, Canonis, Thurna. Each carved with meticulous care, each flanked by Mechanicus numerals and a symbol, either a mark of death or return. Some bore both. Some names had been scratched out entirely, gouged so deep the floor beneath had warped. Solvi remained near the threshold. She was whispering to herself again, one hand pressed to her voice. Jenik stood beside her, but his expression had shifted. It was blank. Not fearful, not focused, just ... empty, as if some part of him was already answering a question. The rest of them hadn't heard yet. Kree circled back to the sphere. Its surface rippled once more, and then the voices began, not from the sphere. From the walls, soft, hissing tones like prayers whispered through broken teeth. They slithered around the chamber, filling the air with a language that felt like a reversal of truth. Familiar words spoken in the wrong order, the creed inverted. The litany undone. Lern winced, blinking rapidly. It's the cant of the Butrong, fragmented. They're burning the litany from the inside out. Kree turned to the sphere. The heart had stopped beating. Silence fell so deep that even the sounds of breath became intrusive. Then, the sphere cracked, just a hairline fracture, snaking down the side like lightning caught in glass. A sound followed a high-pitched note, like metal vibrating just above hearing. Solvi cried out and clutched her ears. Jenik did not move. The fracture widened, and from within the sphere came a pulse. Not of light, of memory. It hit them like a wave, crashing through armor, soul, and thought. Kree blinked and saw a man kneeling in a circle of burning sigils, weeping blood and reciting the Codex Astartes backwards as fire consumed him from the inside. Lern fell to the floor, gasping as visions of Martian forges screaming in agony filled his mind factories, begging for silence. Machines trying to forget. Solvi began screaming names, not of the squad, not of anyone she had ever known. Names that had not been spoken since mankind first reached the stars, and Jenik. Jenik stepped forward. His eyes had turned white, not rolled back, drained. Void pulled tight against bone. He touched the sphere. Kree shouted. Too late, the sphere exploded silently, shattering into glittering shards that dissolved before touching the floor. The heart dropped, hit the ground. Did not bounce, it twitched. Then slowly, it began to beat again. But this time, the beats did not sync with the ship. They commanded it, from deep within the hulk. A new tremor, surged a deep groaning of metal long held still. Deck plates began to shift. Dust poured from ceiling seams. Power lines flared, then snapped. Far away, the sound of pressure doors unlocking echoed like bells. And through the vox on every belt, on every helm, even the ones powered down, came a voice. Male, ancient, layered with distortion, but unmistakably imperial. Observation protocol complete. Confirming retrieval vector. Hosts identified. Signal active. The throne remembers. Lern stumbled to his feet, panicked. Signal. What signal? Who's listening? Kree stared at the heart. At the names, he had no answer. Only one certainty. They had not discovered a relic. They had triggered one. The walls around them began to pulse with a red glow, each beat in time with the heart. Emergency symbols lit up, symbols not used in 10,000 years. Ones only spoken of in inquisitorial records sealed in stasis vaults under Terra's crust. Protocol Aegis null.solvi turned to Kree. Sir, what is this? He looked her in the eye, voice steady, cracked with weight. It's a prayer, written by something that never needed saving. The floor beneath them shifted, and somewhere above, far above, something began to arrive. The hulk had begun to shift, not as a ship groaning under stress, not like some derelict finally succumbing to time and gravity, but like a creature waking from a long, sacrificial slumber. Bulkheads that had stood still for millennia began to realign. Floor panels unlocked without warning. The walls no longer felt inert. They breathed. The squadwat remained of it moved with the precision of men on the edge of something they no longer understood. Kree kept his weapon ready, but he no longer believed it would matter. Lern had stopped speaking entirely. Solvi walked like she was being led by something only she could see. And Jenik hadn't blinked in over an hour. They found the corridor by accident, or maybe design it was impossible to tell now. The hulk no longer obeyed physical laws or navigational intent. It unfolded its paths like a wound revealing rot. The corridor was clean. Polished walls, unmarred floors, soft lights pulsing from invisible sources in warm crimson tones. No filth, no body, no decay. It felt wrong. It felt prepared. At its end stood a chamber unlike any other on the hulk. No blood, no screams carved into the walls, no corrupted liturgies or defiled statues. Just silence. Sacred, terrible silence. And at its center, a sarcophagus. Not ancient, not Gothic, but sleek, golden. Bordered in black adamantine trim, etched with high Gothic, so old that even the Mechanicus refused to claim understanding. At the foot of the tomb, a single servo skull hovered in place, humming gently. Its eye flickered as they approached, scanning each of them, then it spoke. Designation confirmed. Keybearers present. Witnesses assembled. Initiate final doctrine. A hiss of pressure released from the base of the sarcophagus. With a slow grind, the upper casing lifted back. Smoke cold and scentless billowed from within. What lay inside was not dead. The body was human, or had once been, tall, emaciated, clad in a fusion of ecclesiarchal robes and inquisitorial armor. Every inch wrapped in parchment prayer seals, and circuits too thin for any mortal hand to have placed. Its skull was uncovered, shaved, eyes shut, mouth stitched closed with gold thread. But its chest rose and fell, slowly, dreaming, and etched into the inside of the coffin's lid right above the sleeper's head was a name. Inquisitor, Armors, Veilbound. Ordo, Chronos. Declared lost M4 2.0 for 6.kree. Stared at it, and the name meant nothing. But Solvi gasped. That name was struck from the archives. Redacted. Removed from all records. Cree looked down at the body, and the eyes opened. Not wide, not sudden. Just awake. Pale, almost silver, pupils reduced to pinpricks in the glow. And slowly, painfully, the golden thread across the lips began to peel, as though burning away from within. The voice came not from the mouth, but from the hulk itself. You came. Earlier than expected. Lern raised his weapon. Cree didn't stop him, but the Inquisitor's eyes never flinched. I am not your enemy, the voice said. Not yet. Solvi stepped forward, trembling. What is this place? The lips moved, just barely, but the words came through every wall, every wire. This is a coffin, a lock, a tomb. Lern's voice cracked. For what? The body blinked once. For me, then it began to rise. Not fast, but inevitable. Limbs creaking, parchment peeling off in flakes. Sacred seals burning into smoke as though the time for faith had passed. You came because the memory called you, it said. You touched what was never meant to be found. Now it remembers you. Solvi whispered a prayer. The body stepped forward. You are not soldiers anymore. You are vessels. Carriers of the echo. Cree lifted his weapon. Echo of what? The Inquisitor smiled. The thing we tried to kill. The thing we buried beneath its own name. Lern's voice was almost a whisper. You mean chaos? The reply came without pause. No, chaos is a symptom. I speak of the disease. The lights above flickered. The walls trembled. From behind them, alarms they did not recognize began to blur, not claxons, but voices repeating a phrase in a tone too ancient to decipher. Containment breach. Memory unfixed. Echo spreading. The Inquisitor turned, pointing toward the back wall. It shimmered. A door appeared. You want to live? He said. Then you'll have to see what we buried beneath the Astronomicon itself. Cree stared at him, and the Inquisitor smiled again. Follow me. I remember the way. The wall shimmered again, not with light, but with forgetting us, though it had never been solid. Only pretending, waiting for the right sequence of watchers to unlock it with fear and memory. As the Inquisitor stepped through, the air changed. It was like walking from dream into deeper dream, where even breath had weight and gravity pulled at the soul, not the body. Cree followed first. Lern behind him, silent as ever. Solvi moved slowly, warily, one hand on her rosarius, the other clutched tight around the grip of her rifle. Jenik didn't move. He stayed behind, eyes still blank, body unmoving. Cree called to him once. He didn't answer. The Inquisitor did not look back. He is already part of the ship. You cannot take him with you. You can only choose to keep going, and they did. The chamber beyond was unlike anything they'd seen inside the hulk. It was clean, not just free of rot, but of decay entirely. The walls were polished ceramite, streaked with veins of gold, circuitry pulsing softly like blood in a vein. High Gothic arches supported the ceiling, yet they curved in unnatural, non-Euclidean spirals, drawing the eye toward a single central point. A well dot, no water, no depth. just a pool of darkness so perfectly still it reflected their images with unnatural precision. And in that mirror, none of them looked alive. Their armor was shattered, faces sunken, skin bleached. Kree saw his own reflection missing an eye. Lern's mouth hung open as if screaming. Solvi's reflection had no face at all, only a golden mask, grinning. Solvi turned away first. "What is this place?" "A gate," said the Inquisitor, "but not for escape." He stepped to the edge of the well, looked in. His reflection smiled back. "This is where we buried him." Lern finally spoke, voice raw. "Who?" The Inquisitor did not answer. "Not directly. We called it the mind that watches. A relic, yes, but also a punishment. It was not meant to be found again. The Ordo Chronos declared it outside of time, outside of truth. But still, it remembered its name." He looked at them now, truly looked. Eyes that had seen the inside of time. "You brought it back, with thought, with memory, with presence. You carried it up through the decks and into the light again." Kree's jaw clenched. "What is it?" The Inquisitor tilted his head. "A Primarch's dream, a demon's silence, a cogitator's prayer, all wrong, all broken, and still breathing." Lern raised his weapon slowly. "You knew this would happen. You wanted us to find it." "No," the Inquisitor said, stepping closer. "I needed you to." Then the well began to bleed. A slow trickle of black ichor slid over the rim. It didn't splash, didn't drip. It climbed, crawling up the stone lip like a serpent made of thought and rot. The smell was immediate. Ink and rot and birth. Every hair on Kree's arms rose. His auspex flared to life for the first time in hours, shrieking with data it couldn't process. The ichor spilled forward and touched Lern's boot. He convulsed, not from pain, but from overwhelm, like an entire lifetime being written over his own in seconds. And then he fell, silent, dead, before hitting the ground. Solvi screamed. The Inquisitor turned. "It's too late. It's awake. You can't kill it. You can only contain it." Kree raised his weapon, heart pounding. "Then tell me how." The Inquisitor extended his hand toward the pool. "Step inside." Kree stared at him. At the well, at Solvi, her eyes were wide, lips moving. No sound came, only tears. "Kree," she whispered finally, "I think it's inside us now." The Inquisitor nodded. It was always waiting. In the silence, in the memory of what we forgot. The ship was just its shell. You are the key. The darkness surged upward, and everything they knew burned away. The darkness did not fall like a curtain, it rose, like floodwater. It came from below, from inside, from behind the skin of the world. Kree felt it enter, not through the mouth or lungs, but through the memory. Images he had never lived flooded his mind. A child watching Terra's sky crack with fire. A warrior in bronze armor speaking his last words in a forgotten dialect. A broken throne where a heart beat louder than any machine. Solvi screamed once and then stopped. Hands pressed tight to her temples. Her mouth moved, but her voice no longer matched her own. It was older, wiser, terrified. She spoke in phrases that didn't make sense until you stopped trying to understand them and simply listened. His name is not his own. He did not ascend, he returned. The Inquisitor stood motionless, arms outstretched toward the black well as the pulsing ichor pooled at his feet. It did not consume him. It cloaked him, welcomed him. The scrollwork across his armor peeled away in strips, revealing an underlayer not of armor, but bone. Not armor, but scripture etched into living flesh. He turned to Kree. You carry it now. Not in your hands, in your remembering. It cannot be forgotten again, not while you draw breath. Kree raised his weapon, hands trembling. It felt useless, childish, a stick of light pointed at a storm. He fired anyway. The bolt struck the Inquisitor's chest. He staggered, looked down, laughed. The sound was dry, hollow, almost kind. That won't help. But it was good that you tried. Learn if it was still Lernlunge then. Blade out, not gun. He moved without hesitation, striking for the throat, the chest, the heart. But before the blade could reach flesh, the ichor rose up not as liquid, but as hands, grasping, gripping, pulling. Lern disappeared without a scream. Just silence. Solvi knelt, not in surrender, in prayer. But her prayer had no words, only breath, a rhythm, and from the well, something answered, a voice. Not male, not female, not human. A voice made of consensus. We did not die. We were put away. The chamber began to collapse, not in structure, but in sense. The walls warped outward, forming impossible angles. The light began to bleed. Time spun in brief. Loopscree saw Solvi's lips move, then saw her already standing where she hadn't yet walked. The Inquisitor opened his arms wide, and behind him the well split open like an eye. Kree grabbed Solvi's arm, pulled her up. She didn't resist. She didn't look away from the eye. It's not done with us, she whispered. I know, Kree said. They turned, sprinting toward the door that had vanished, only to find a new one waiting spiraled metal, shifting gears made of bone and brass. It opened. The Hulk welcomed them back. The corridor was no longer familiar. The walls pulsed in sync with the heart they'd left behind. Every lumen flickered. Every surface breathed. Somewhere distant, a choir of broken voices recited liturgies Kree could not name. As they ran, the vox activated again, not from Kree's belt, but from Solvi's throat. Warning: fragment containment breach. Prepare for the second vessel. Kree didn't ask what it meant. He had already guessed. Behind them, the Hulk roared, not in sound, but will. Steel shivered. Gravity folded. The ship began to rewire itself, not around them, but through them. Kree pushed forward. Solvi staggered, but followed. Genix stood in the corridor ahead, blocking the way. His eyes now black, his body humming with light. He opened his mouth to speak, but not in voice. In code, the ship spoke through him. We will remember everything. Kree raised his weapon again. No fear now, only silence, and pulled the trigger. Somewhere deep in the Hulk, something had begun to sing. Not in sound, not in anything the ears could hear, but in pressure, memory, pattern. A chorus written in pain, performed by systems that had long since outlived their function. Pipes exhaled steam like dying lungs. Bulkhead seams bled rust in slow, deliberate patterns. The air itself began to hum in rhythmic pulses, syncing with the thing they had woken. KREE moved on instinct now. There was no direction, no mission map, no tactical grid, just momentum, survival, or something near it. Solvi staggered behind him, the last of her prayers spent, her Rosarius long cracked. The light it once offered was dead. She no longer whispered the Emperor's name aloud, only in breath, only in memory. Ahead, the corridor widened into an arching chamber vault built from bones and steel, ringed with broken data shrines. Once, perhaps, it had been a hall of remembrance. Now it was a mausoleum of belief. The walls were layered with vox recorders, melted into the metal. Speakers spitting corrupted chants, words spoken by long-dead voices, looping without pause. But as Kree passed, they changed. The chants shifted tone, cadence. Content, they began to speak of him, not by name, but by deed, by thought, by fear. He walked into the heart and did not turn away. The key that unlocks the gate is not forged, is broken. What he remembers now, the galaxy will learn to forget. Kree fired a bolt into the nearest speaker. It died mid-word. The others continued without pause. Solvi slumped to one knee. "It's building something," she whispered. "Not a weapon, not a message. A litany, a system, using us." Kree turned to her. "Then we end it." But he knew the lie even as he said it. This thing was older than any weapon. Older than chaos. It was memory, it was ritual. A recursion of self-awareness given mass and voice. You did not kill something like that. You survived it, if it allowed. And it had not yet allowed. They entered the next chamber like entering a tomb inside a tomb. The floor was glass or something like it. Beneath, a vast network of bodies floated in cold stasis. Not corpses, not entirely. Their eyes moved, their mouths twitched. Thousands of them. Soldiers, priests, servitors, all half awake, dreaming together. Kree stepped carefully. Each footfall echoed, not in sound, but in vision glimpses of wars he had never fought. Suns devoured by words, Astartes chapters consumed by their own doctrine, machines begging to forget. A spire rose at the center of the chamber, tall and thin, adorned with scrolls that reached from floor to ceiling. Blood written, inked in the languages of 100 forgotten cultures. Names repeated again and again across the scrolls. Frie, Solvital, Lerne, Gennik, dot at the base of the spire. A single mask lay waiting, gold, expressionless. Its surface shined like wet flesh. Beneath it, a data slate pulsed. Kree knelt and lifted it. The screen flared, displaying a sentence written in elegant, high Gothic. "The one who remembers shall carry the sin forward." Then the spire spoke not aloud, but into them. "You are liturgy now. Doctrine reborn. Not by belief, by contact, by witness, by presence," Solvi gasped. "We're not here to stop it. We're here to record it." The realization struck like a thunderclap in Kree's chest. The Hulk wasn't a prison. It wasn't a tomb. It was a scriptorium, a place where the galaxy's forbidden memories were kept alive through those who walked its veins. Not on stone, not on paper, but in mind, in flesh. Living scriptures, liturgies of the shattered, and they had just been ordained. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The mask began to vibrate. The glass beneath their feet cracked. The sleepers below stirred, and the ship's systems spoke again, in perfect synchrony, across all Vox channels. New chapter initiated. Doctrine in motion. Begin replication, Solvi screamed. Not in fear, in recognition. We've become the template. It's going to copy us, everywhere. Kree gritted his teeth and lifted his weapon. He looked to the mask, the slate, the spire, and in the glass. Below, he saw his own reflection, whispering prayers he didn't know he knew. Kree gripped his rifle tighter. But even he knew by now it was nothing more than ritual. The weapon wouldn't matter. Not here, not anymore. This wasn't a battlefield, it was a rewriting. He was no longer just a soldier. He was becoming a sentence in something vast, recursive, and sacred in the worst way. The mask on the dais continued to vibrate, its expression unchanged, a blank gold slate, grinning with serene indifference. All around them, the ship began to chant. Not in words, in patterns. The lights pulsed in threes. The air hissed in cycles. The breathing of the sleepers below, the glass synchronized into something like a hymn. They were being recorded, replicated, rendered into meaning. Solvi stumbled back from the spire, pressing her hands to her ears. It's using us. Our thoughts, our voices, every step we've taken. It's writing us into itself. Kree could see it too now. Memories that weren't his flashing behind his eyes. Places he had never been. Names he had never spoken. His own childhood reimagined, his training reshaped. A new life overlaying the one he'd actually lived. He dropped the rifle. It clattered on the floor, echoing too loud in the stillness. The reflections beneath the glass stirred again. Faces pressed upwards soft. Blank eyes twitching, as if trying to surface from dreams too deep to escape. Lern's face appeared among them now, mouth stitched closed, as if even death had been transformed into recitation. They hadn't just fallen to the hulk, they'd been absorbed, made into story. Is this what it wants? Kree whispered. A library made of the dead. Solvi looked up at the spire. No, she said. Not just the dead. The shattered, the ones who saw something too big to keep inside. That's what it feeds on. That's what it remembers. The ship trembled again. Not violently, but insistently, like something clearing its throat before speaking. Along the wall, new glyphs began to burn into the metal, lines of Gothic folding into alien numerals, and then into binary. They repeated the same sequence again and again. Subject pattern approved. Expansion begins. And then the hulk moved, not twisted, not tilted. Moved. Kree and Solvi both staggered, bracing themselves as artificial gravity fluctuated. The chamber lights shifted from red to white, clinical, surgical, sterile. Not the colors of war, the colors of procedure, and beneath their feet, the sleepers began to rise. One by one, the bodies in the glass were lifted upward, not physically, but in mirrored echo. Their forms remained below, but some echo of them was rising into the chamber. Phantoms made of data, shadow, and unresolved pain. Each wore a face that flickered between what was and what the ship remembered them to be. One reached towards Solvi. She flinched, raised her arm to strike, but the figure didn't touch her. It merged with her just for a second, and in that instant, her eyes glowed with light, not of the Astronomicon, but of something colder. She gasped and fell to her knees, coughing. Blood dripped from her nose, but she was still breathing. Kree pulled her back, voice low. You stay with me. Do you hear? Stay. She nodded once, slowly. And then the golden mask lifted on its own, floated toward them, suspended in the air by invisible strings of will. It turned to face Kree and spoke. You are ready. He didn't move. You will carry it, it said. You already are. What is it? Kree asked. The wound. The whisper. The litany. The mask melted. Not like wax, like memory losing coherence. The walls peeled back, revealing not structure, a space-raw void painted with faces and voices, too many to count, all screaming the same phrase in 100 different ways. "We remember you," and then silence. Cree turned. Solvi was no longer standing. She was kneeling, her face calm, blood trailing from both eyes, hands resting open on her knees as if waiting for communion. "I can see him," she whispered. Cree knelt beside her. "Who?" Her eyes flicked to his, the one beneath the Astronomicon, and far above, beyond the hull, the stars began to move. Cree stood motionless as the stars outside. The Hulk began their impossible dance-tracing paths in the void that no natural orbit could explain, shifting in geometric spirals that looped and repeated like a ritual. Constellations twisted into symbols. Celestial bodies blinked in and out of alignment, like words in a sentence, too vast for any mind to hold. The galaxy was rearranging itself around what they had unearthed. No, not unearthed. Reawakened. Solvi's words still echoed, soft and reverent. The one beneath the Astronomicon. She said it like a title. A myth. A liturgy so ancient it had never been written, only felt. Cree lowered his head. Around him, the glass floor had dissolved, exposing the suspended choir of dreamers below. They weren't dead. Not fully. Some were blinking. Others twitched in micro-movements, as if listening. But they weren't looking at him. They were looking through him. Solvi's voice rose again. But now it was double-layered with a deeper tone that wasn't hers. That came from inside the hull, inside every wall. "We are the breath between pages, the hymn between wars. We are the proof that silence is a lie." The ship responded with a surge of light, golden, blinding. The scrolls that adorned the spire now flared with fire, each line of ink igniting into ghost flame that burned without smoke, without heat. And then, like ash, they dissolved upward into the ceiling, into the hull, into the ship's memory itself. The spire began to collapse inward, not crumble. Collapse like a data file being closed. And then everything stilled, not quiet, not empty, still. The sleepers below ceased their motions. The light died. Solvi turned to Cree, her face expressionless, tears cutting tracks down blood-stained cheeks. "It's done," she said. But Cree shook his head. "No, it started." Because the walls began to breathe again, slow, calm, certain dot. And then the Vox systems flared back to life. Not with voices, with instructions. A new voice, cold, mechanicals, poke across every channel. Male, female, other, echoed, harmonized, and unmistakably imperial in tone. Subject signatures archived. Vessels seeded. Network replication initiated. Cree didn't ask what it meant. He already knew every word they'd spoken. Every step, every thought, every fracture of soul and memory they'd endured inside this tomb of Steelite had been recorded. Not to be forgotten, to be copied. He turned to Solvi, who only nodded once. "They'll send others?" "They already have," Cree replied, and far above, deep in the Hulk's command spine, a transmission began to pulse, a low-frequency signal masked behind obsolete codes. A message broadcasting not in warning, not in distress, but in invitation. The same kind of signal that had brought them here. He could already imagine it. Somewhere on the fringe of Imperial space, another ship, maybe an inquisitorial cutter, maybe a Mechanica scout, would pick it up. They'd scan. They'd find nothing dangerous. Just echoes. Just silence. Just the promise of answers. and they would come. The door behind them reopened, though neither of them had touched it. A path formed back the way they came, but different now, wider, marked, cleansed. Cree picked up his rifle again, not for battle, for meaning. They walked in silence through the memory of the ship, now made sacred by their passage. The dead had names now. The rot had been given reason, and every step they took etched a new line into a story that would outlive them, because the ship had become the scripture, and they were its first apostles. The signal escaped the hulk like a whisper through a broken seal, subtle and nearly undetectable, coded in obsolete frequencies and veiled beneath astropathic debris. It spread across the void, slow and patient, as if it knew it would be heard, not by the loud, but by the listening. By those who watched the dark and waited for things that should not return. Cree didn't know how long they had walked since leaving the chamber. Minutes, hours, days. The hulk no longer obeyed time as the rest of the galaxy knew it. The corridors folded in gentle spirals now, not hostile, not chaotic. The hulk was calm. It had written its page. The violence was done. The scripture had been sealed, and yet the signal continued. He heard it first as static on the edge of his vox-off, fragile like breath before speech. He ignored it. Then it returned, louder, persistent, not as a voice, but as a knock. For pulses, a pause. For more, Solvi was behind him, eyes distant. She hadn't spoken in nearly 2 cycles. Something had changed in her when the litany took root like a candle lit in a vault too deep to reach. She didn't weep, didn't rage. She just remembered. The vox cracked again, but this time it spoke a voice, mechanical, faint, older than the codes it used. Double quotes, ... recipient, link verified. Eyes of terror acknowledge pattern breach. Respond with identification. Cree stopped walking. His heart, already slow from days of adrenaline, rot, and fear fatigue, clenched in his chest. Terror. No one from Terra had contacted the hulk in over 6 millennia. This vessel had been lost, declared erased. Its record locked behind inquisitorial obfuscation protocols so dense not even Mechanicus, red priests, dared retrieve them. And yet, the signal carried a valid seal, and it was waiting for him to speak. He glanced at Solvi. Her head turned slightly, as if she'd heard the voice too, but she gave no answer, only silence. Cree pressed a trembling finger to the vox. "This is Captain Varnus Cree," he said. "Cadian designation. Imperial registry." Before he could finish, the voice cut across him. Designation unnecessary. Identity logged. Fragment vector complete. The vox fled brighter, louder. Not broken anymore, not faint. A second voice emerged. One he hadn't heard since the day they boarded the Hulk. Gennik. But it wasn't him. Not entirely. "We came through the mouth of silence, and it taught us how to speak. ... Cree dropped the unit, but the voice didn't stop. It echoed now through every pipe, every wall, every lumen. "He waits not behind the veil, but beneath your words." Solvi finally stirred. It's using the vox, not to speak, to spread. Cree knew it, felt it. They had been walking toward an exit, but it wasn't an escape hatch. It was a transmission point, a massive relay array. Long thought destroyed, now humming back to life like a choir preparing to sing. Gold cables rose from the floor. Shrines built from vox spines, lit with sacrificial flame. Servitors, long thought dead, began to twitch bones, reanimated, not by will, but by memory. Every one of them stared skyward. Kree turned in place. This is a broadcast. It isn't warning anyone. It's infecting the signal paths. Spreading the scripture, he stepped toward the array, fury in his chest. No, not at the ship, not even at the Inquisitor, but at himself. For following, for listening, for believing. He ripped the Vox from the wall, fired a bolt round into the relay's core, but the voice only laughed, not aloud. Inside him. You believed that killing the tongue would silence the word. And then came the scream, not from the ship. From Solvi, she fell, clutching her chest. Her mouth opened wide, but not in agony. In song, her voice lifted melodic, layered, hundreds of voices woven into one. Her body rose a few centimeters off the ground. Limbs spread as if crucified in light. Kree rushed to her, caught her hand, and saw her eyes empty. Glowing dot, the ship had found its angel. Solvi hung in the air like an icon made flesh. Her limbs stretched in unnatural symmetry, bathed in a light that came from nowhere. It was not holy. It was not warp-born. It was older than ever, an imitation of reverence. A mimicry of divine revelation cast in the skin of madness. Her mouth moved with elegance, but no control. Her voice poured out in waves, layer upon layer of liturgies that did not belong to her tongue. Kree stood frozen beneath her, rifle limp in his hands, heart pounding against bone that suddenly felt too thin. He didn't recognize the woman before him, not the one he'd fought beside, saved, trusted. This was not Solvi. This was the message. She spoke in registers that should not coexist, deep as the void between stars, sharp as a screaming servitor, soft as a mother's whisper through a sealed blast door. Each phrase landed like a carving knife across the air, reshaping the chamber into a shrine of memory. All language returns to origin. The silence before speech was not silence, but choosing. You are the breath between the Emperor's words. Kree tried to move. His feet wouldn't respond. The ship held him not physically, but structurally, as if it had made a note of him and refused to release the footnote. The relay began to pulse brighter, and now Kree could feel the data moving, not ones and zeros, but meanings flowing like ichor through invisible veins. Every breath Solvi took rewrote another part of the signal. Architecture. He realized what was happening to. Late, she wasn't the source of the signal. She was the key to decoding it. The knowledge she'd gained, the memories they'd shared, the pain they'd suffered, it was all reassembled inside her now. Transmitted through voice, through gesture, through existence itself. And whoever was on the other end, they were listening. He looked to the relay panel. A blinking green sigil now pulsed on its surface. Uplink confirmed. Terror acknowledged. A second sigil appeared. Replication node active. Vector spreading. The third one flickered to life and then stopped. Awaiting directive, Kree stepped forward, uncertain how he was even able to move now. His bones felt coated in frost. His blood sang in counterpoint to the signal. He reached for Solvi. The moment his hand brushed her armor, her eyes snapped open. Her voice stopped. The silence hit harder than the scream. She gasped, once ragged, desperate, like surfacing from beneath oceans of static. Her lips trembled. "Captain." "I'm here," he said. Her hand gripped his wrist. "It's not just this ship," she whispered. "It's everywhere. We weren't the first. We won't be the last." He didn't ask how she knew. He understood now. The Hulk wasn't just a trap. It was a node, And now the signal was ready to leap, to copy, to become gospel across every Imperial data path, buried in scrapped code and corrupted prayers, sleeping until someone remembered. He turned back to the relay core. 3 choices. Terminate the signal. Burn every system. Risk awakening something worse in the process. Complete the signal. Let the message go out. Let the Imperium know what had been buried, and let the litany begin to rewrite. Belief itself, or do nothing. Walk away and leave it pulsing forever. Kree raised his hand, and somewhere inside the ship, a new voice rose. A child's voice, his own. The Emperor protects. He didn't remember saying it, but the ship did, and it believed him. The child's voice echoed through the relay chamber like a breeze across dry stone, familiar but hollow. It wasn't memory. It wasn't playback. It was a version of him preserved, fragmented, and folded into the ship's echo architecture. The Hulk was no longer copying minds. It was reconstructing them. Kree stood frozen, hand still raised toward the console. As his own voice, the boy he'd once been repeated the old catechism in broken, recursive loops. The Emperor protects. The Emperor protects. But who protects him? The last phrase struck like a thunderclap. Not because of blasphemy, but because it wasn't his. He had never said that. But he had thought it once, years ago, buried beneath a collapsed trench on Cadia, bleeding out beside a brother too shattered to scream. He had thought it once, only once, and the Hulk had remembered. He looked at Sylvie, still kneeling, her face streaked with dried blood, her body too still, like she had become the eye of the storm. Her lips moved faintly, whispering prayers no one had taught her. She was still inside the chant part of the chant, but her voice no longer belonged to the signal. It was hers now. She had taken it back, and Kree understood. The Hulk hadn't built a weapon, not a plague, not a curse. It had built a testament, a message written in flesh, trauma, fear, and failure. It did not want to destroy the Imperium. It wanted to be remembered by it, to be added to the archive of horrors, to be known like the names of saints or traitors. It wanted to join the canon, but the final page was his to write. He stepped to the control pillar, surface still lit with the 3 choices. Accept, deny, wait. His hand hovered, and he spoke not with rage, not with panic, with certainty. No. He selected the 4th choice, the one the ship hadn't offered. He overrode the litany. His finger jammed down on the console. Not accept, not deny, but the command buried deep, old as the ship's own bones, left by someone who had guessed this might happen. The Vox screamed, the Hulk howled, systems flared, lights cracked. Every lumen burst in a sudden detonation of sparks and flame. The floor buckled, the walls screamed in binary agony, and the glass beneath them shattered inward. Sylvie collapsed to the ground, body limp but breathing, and in the dark, amid the sparks and collapsing code, Kree felt it a presence pulling back. Not defeated, not destroyed, just contained, for now. He lifted Sylvie into his arms, staggering through collapsing corridors, following the flicker of one last emergency lumen that blinked like a dying star. The path was tight, smoke thick, metal twisted, and then light. Natural light. They stepped through a breach in the hull, out into a corridor flooded with starlight from a long-forgotten observation deck. The galaxy stretched before them, cold and unknowable. Still turning, the hulk was silent. The message was trapped, but in the very distance, across the stars, Kree imagined it other ships, other minds, other doors. This one had closed, but it had shown them the way. Solvi stirred in his arms, her eyes opened, wet with pain. "Did we stop it?" she asked. Kree looked to the stars. "No," he said, "but we made it wait." Far behind them, the Vox relay sparked one last time, memory archived, access pending, and then silence. True silence, at least. Until someone else decides to listen.